everybody, it is Romania Black, and we're reading Goodbye Eri by Tatsuki Fujimoto. If you don't know who Tatsuki Fujimoto is, they're the creator of this series called Chainsaw Man that's coming out in a few weeks that I'm going to be watching here on this channel. And so in preparation for that, I have heard that Tatsuki Fujimoto has done several like one-shot short stories, like short manga pieces. And I thought that the three that are most recent, Just Listen to the Song, Goodbye Eri, and Look Back, I wanted to look at before we started Chainsaw Man, because I've heard that Fujimoto is just an amazing mangaka, an amazing writer. I think that the actual artwork is not done by Fujimoto, or someone else does the artwork and Fujimoto just writes it. I'm not sure if that's the case. That was the case with Just Listen to the Song, which is the last one we looked at last week, or the week before rather. And then this one we're looking at, I don't know if that's the case as well, but I'm watching it through Viz. I'm going to read it through Viz because I have a subscription with them, and I'm really excited. I've heard Goodbye Eri is amazing. I've heard it's really good. I've just listened to the song. It was like 20 pages, and it was really good. It was like, whoa. It got into like some supernatural, like philosophical elements. I was like, in 20 pages, you're going places, Fujimoto. But this is like a 200-page one-shot. It's like a volume. I was like, Fujimoto, what? So I'm really excited. I know that Fujimoto finished Chainsaw Man like late in 2021 and then just took some time off to just do these one-shots, or had them already in process and just finished them. I'm like, how productive. So I'm really excited to read this and just kind of see what it's about. I've heard a lot of good things about Goodbye Eri, that it's like 200 pages of like just great stuff. So in 20 pages, I was hooked on Just Listen to the Song, and it was like a tiny one shot. So this is a volume's worth. So I'm really excited to see what all goes down with this. So I don't know. I figured that with Chainsaw Man coming out, my brother loves Chainsaw Man, loves the manga. I've been really excited about it. And so I wanted to get more into the mangaka's works and just see what kind of a writer and storyteller they are. And already from Just Listen to the Song, I can see kind of like the horror spooky elements coming through, which seems like Chainsaw Man, it's gonna be right up its alley. So I've also heard that Fire Punch is really good. Maybe after Chainsaw Man ends, I can read Fire Punch. It's like 8 volumes and it's done. So maybe we'll get to that in the spring, but I'm really excited for this. So as per usual, I'm going to be reading it, so you guys can follow along with me with the link down below, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about it afterwards and kind of review it. So I don't know what all we got to review, but we'll see, right? So let's dive into this and see what all we're going to get, and just see what Goodbye Eri gives us. So we are going to read Goodbye Eri by Tatsuki Fujimoto, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh shit! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Ah! Oh, shit. Oh, okay. Oh, my God. Oh, okay. Okay. Am I gonna cry in every episode of Chainsaw Man? Is that series gonna leave me bawling? What the fudge? Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh. I gotta collect myself for a minute, guys. Oh, man. Ugh! I'm seeing a trend! I'm seeing a trend! Oh, my God. Okay. Oh, shit. Oh. Oh. That was amazing. That was incredible. Y'all, I was a little worried going into this because a lot of people were hyping this up, and usually if you know me on this channel, I try not to get hyped up about stuff. I try to avoid spoilers. I try not to get hyped because I like talking with y'all in the comments, but I try not to go into anything getting too worked up about something because I don't want to be disappointed, right? And so going into this, I was like, well, everybody says it's really good. I'm like, I don't want to get too worked up about it because what if it's not? God, this was masterful. This was freaking amazing. I don't know where to begin. I guess the overarching things is that I've noticed with Fujimoto, I read Look Back last year, and I'm gonna reread it the next video I do, because I've forgotten a lot of it, but I remember the stuff that made me cry, you know. And Fujimoto tackles death a lot with their series, with the works that I've read from him so far. Like tackles death and illness and things that are hard, like hard subjects. And it's, I'm gonna try to keep it together, but man, it's rough, right? It's rough. Oof. But the thing that really gets me the most is the idea of perspective and how you frame something, right? Oh man, just give me a moment. It's really hard for me to talk about this sort of story without like getting so emotional, because it really is personal. It's like, oh my God. The real world issues that are tackled in this story are very well done. And then that twist of fantasy, that's the thing that gets you, right? Because, and I'm going to try not to sob my freaking eyes out talking about this story, but man, so like, oh God, like just saying it like makes me want to like sob. So I'm going to talk really fast, and maybe that will help me get through it. And maybe that'll help me get through it even more. But yeah, like, trying to distract myself. But yeah, but my uncle had a terminal illness, and it was really, really hard. Oh, it's really hard to talk about. But no, he had a terminal illness, and I was there when he died, so it's really hard to talk about. And the story, I'm going to work through it though. But this story, it hit really hard right from the beginning. Oh my God, it hit hard. Because there's so many aspects of it that if you've been with somebody that is going through that, right? And so with the mom, there's a lot of aspects like of wanting to film those last moments with them and take photos and things, and it can be hard to do that, especially when they look like they're suffering from an illness. And for her, what really gets you in this is that when you find out later that it was like a vanity project, that because the way that it's shot at the beginning, there we go, we're good now, yeah, we're good now, get back in. This thing has just got me, Fujimoto. But the thing that's really hard about it is that from the beginning you think going into it that the mom is totally different than how you find out she was later on, because all you see is her kind of being pretty and kind around him. You get hints of it. There are hints of it early on in the manga, like when she's like, camera off, Buster, and she's like no filming in here, and like stuff like that, but you don't connect the dots. You just think it's her being funny and haha, and then you find out later that no, she was actually pretty cruel to him while Yuta was filming, and it's like, oh, okay. And then the dad crying, there's parts of it like this series, and I'm getting in Fujimoto's work, what Fujimoto likes to do is blend reality with fantasy and reality with the facade. And so during it, what you end up getting is that you're not quite sure what is an act and what is real until it all starts to spiral out, right? So the dad crying at the beginning, you think that he's crying because the mom is dying, and that may have been true, but then you think that the dad is probably also crying because the mom was like forcing his son to film her as she was going through this illness, and she thought she was going to be fine and recover, and she'd make this documentary and it'd be like a vanity project. And then so that line when she says at the very end, she's like, oh, how useless you are. He's useless as always. That makes more sense because you realize she wasn't a good person. She was mean, and that she was doing it for vanity, and then she ends up actually dying. And then you're like, oh, that's where this was going. Okay. And so it all makes sense now, where she's like, I'm in the hospital for tests. It's surprisingly comfy here. And she's like, I'm all dressed up. Like, she's acting because she was planning on making it a documentary, right? It wasn't just like a home video or something. And I can relate so much to Yuta at that beginning there when he said he was filming them sleeping because he was afraid they were going to die. Yeah, like as you get older and when you go through something like that, like you start worrying about your parents, you start worrying about your family members. And so every time like it's like a trauma almost that you start to worry about them, right? And so you want to like keep that image of them, right? So you don't forget, right? So, God, this story was so good. But like, just the artwork, the way that the angles, the artwork, and the idea that like it gets blurry sometimes and you can't quite see it and it feels like a film reel. It's grainy and shaky and it's just blurry and it doesn't quite seem, it seems out of focus. Like, and the fact that Yuta's face is constantly distorted, like you can't fully see, like he looks like he's in pain and despair constantly because he actually is, but he doesn't portray that in the story. You just get this, you get to see it, right, from the time he was 12 to the time he was an adult. Oh my God. And just like the images, the toothpaste, the toothbrushes, the three and the thing, the dad, like the artwork, God, it's gorgeous. And the use of the way that the imagery is blurred and you see the dad's face being sad and you see like the bug getting eaten by the ants and the use of the same shot over and over again, like the same panel, and it just changes minutely, just a wee bit. It's genius. And that he's like, I can't wrap it around my mom dying. And you get it at the end that he doesn't want to go in and see his mom's death. He doesn't want to film it. He doesn't want to, which why would you, right? Even why would you want to remember? Because that's the whole point of the movie, and the whole point of the story is that the way that you portray someone on film, the way that they are remembered. And that's kind of true for everyone. Like everything that passes, you have a memory of it. And the memory isn't perfect, right? We did like a whole grad class on memory when I was in college, and it talks about how like you remember certain things differently. And you can kind of trick your mind sometimes into remembering things a certain way so that it's almost like a coping mechanism. Like a lot of times you remember things in a different light as a way to cope. And to honor someone's memory, you try to remember them in the best light possible, right? Like you don't want to remember them as being a bad person. So Yuta going in there to film that death, of course he wouldn't want to, because why would you want to remember somebody in a bad light when the rest of the movie has been remembering her in a positive way? So what I love that Fujimoto does is that they take this reality, this dark, harsh reality, and adds that element of fantasy, that element of surrealism to it, to shake things up, to lighten the mood, to change the mood, to do something, because some of this stuff gets really, really deep and really cuts to the core of you. And that's when you need that fantasy. So him running away, the hospital blowing up, that's what needed to happen because the truth is too hard. Because the reality is too hard. So you have to put in this fantasy to make it copeable, right? And he says goodbye, Mom, which the goodbye, Mom is not in good taste. Like his mother dying and it's this really sad moment and then there's an explosion and he just yells goodbye, Mom. I could see why people in the audience, like there's one girl there that's like doing this like with her hand, like they're all like really sad. And the parallelism, God, Fujimoto, that just, God, it's masterful. The parallelism that you have people shocked and disturbed at how distasteful this movie was. But then Eri liked it. Because she's like, oh, I want him to film this of my life. You can do this for me. And so that parallelism of how people react to that one, to her saying you'll bawl your eyes out at the end. I was like, when that came up, she's like, oh, they're going to bawl their eyes out. I'm like, it was like, this was all tailor-made to happen. Like, just, God, it's so narratively good. It's so good. It's so freaking good. But yeah. And then the scene where they're in the back room and the guy tells Yuta about, and he like says a person's death is awesome. What's wrong with you? And like just that same shot repeated over and over again. And then there's a dramatic change. Like that's so well done. Oh my God. I can tell you I'm getting more and more excited for Chainsaw Man because this writer, Fujimoto, their work is so good. And it just like cuts to you emotionally to your core. But if the Chainsaw Man is gonna make me, it's a shonen, it's an action shonen, so that makes me feel a little bit better. I'm like, maybe it won't make me sob my eyes out every single episode, but oh my God, this got me. It just got me, and just the fact that you get with Yuta this idea that his personality, the way that he constantly like he tries to frame things where he talks to a camera. And he always looks at problems, like he says, an adult as outside of himself. He can't internally cope and internally deal with the stuff that's happening to him. And so he turns outside to look at it from an outsider's perspective. And the fact that he's been suicidal since he was a kid, and the fact that it comes back as an adult, and the fact that Eri saves him twice. And this series, it messes with you because, again, you're like, the whole time, once he gets to the roof of the hospital and he's gonna jump, I was like, because we established, like, it's that pinch of fantasy, right? I'm like, did he say he was gonna jump and then change his mind, right? Because it shows him looking over the edge at the parking lot like he's gonna jump, and then he backs off. And he backs off before Eri says, "Are you gonna jump?" Right? So we see him looking over at the parking lot, and then we see it pan back, and then we hear Eri. So the question is, was this all in his head? I mean, I don't think so, because the dad recognizes Eri. But there is an air to this story where you kind of question, like, what is reality, what's not reality? And that happened back in Just Listen to the Song. You question, like, what's real, what's not real? And Fujimoto does a really good job of making you wonder, like, is this real? Is it not? I don't know. Like, it makes you question it, right? You just don't know for sure. So I love the idea of Eri being this vampire that follows him around. And she's like, well, if you're going to die, go somewhere else. But she saw this movie and she takes him to the basement, where the, like, rundown, dilapidated basement where she's been staying at. God, it's good. I'm going to take a picture of the two of them together to show him movies, because that's how we define, narratives. Stories are the way that we tell our lives, right? And so she, like, makes him sit there and watch the movie with her. And I just love his face where he's like, like, his expressions sometimes at her are like, what? She reminds me kind of like, she has like a Rey vibe to her from Neon Genesis, just like a little bit of a Rey vibe to her, which is funny because she's a vampire. She's the undead. She keeps coming back over and over again. It's a fun time. I like it. But she has this whole thing. And again, the thing of it is like facial expressions. Like, Fujimoto has, like, close-ups of these characters over and over again talking. And it's very, like it's not that it's lazy. The background is amazing. But it's that the focus is on the face and on the way that it's composed, the shakiness of it, the grittiness of it. And then, like, him, like, it just feels like there's such a fluidity to it that it's so beautiful. And, like, everything is, like, repetitive. Like, it's just like it feels like frames of a movie, right? Which is fitting because this whole thing is about filming movies. But, like, her going into the darkness when she leaves, her being a vampire, them watching the movies, her falling back into, and you almost wonder if she's a vampire, if her being outside in the sun too long is what drains her and, like, makes her die and then get reborn, right? So, like, her brain, and I like the way that they explain vampires in this story. It's that their heart and stuff, their bodies and hearts are undying, but their brain can only process so much. So eventually their brain fries out, like, every 200 years, and then she comes back and starts all over again without remembering anything. But then, yeah, and the whole thing with the peace sign, like, that follows through the entire film that they do. And we keep seeing, like, him cut back and his face is all like fragmented and shaky. So it's just the insight into Yuta and his kind of flawed persona and the flawed character that he is and the trauma that he's going through and having to deal with not only losing his mom, but then thinking that he lost Eri as well. And it haunts him, right? Because he films like 2,700 hours. Like, he filmed 27 more times the amount of footage than he did of his mother with Eri, right? And it's funny because all the things we see of Eri, it's interesting because the stuff we see of her in this story, she seems like a really cool, chill girl. And then I'm assuming that's her sister or her friend at the end that talks to him. And they're like, no, she was a bitch. But you don't know that because that's not what was filmed. In the 27 hours, he only filmed the good stuff. And I think the only hint that we actually get of her being kind of like that is the scene with the dad at the dinner table, where he's like, you should stop pushing him to make the movie. And she's like, let him. Like, she gets kind of like stern with the dad and he tells her to leave. And then we find out that it's just a scene in the movie, but then there's kind of a reality to it with the dad too. And so, God, and the scene on the beach with her, and it's all shaky and everything. And then she falls back into the ocean and she's in the hospital and he takes the videos of him crapping and sends to her because it's not appropriate, but his mom wouldn't let him film it, so he wants to do it for her, right? Because this is different. But she wants him to film her last days, her last moments. And I love just the shot of the dad, like everything lingers and it changes just a little bit, like per frame. And he records the final moments. That was hard to watch the mom, because I was afraid they wouldn't show us the very final moment, because I've seen my uncle like that, and it's very similar to this, and it's disturbing. And it's something you don't ever forget. And so it's like you can't forget that. And that's why I don't blame Yuta for not wanting to see that, because it's pretty haunting, and you can't forget it, even if you try to. Even if you remember them any other way, you don't forget that. So it's just... But then we find out that the mom was really not nice and was not kind to Yuta, and the dad was possibly crying. Like, she even smacks him at some point and like pops him over the face. It doesn't look like she was hurting him too much, but still, it's that, just the fact that she was doing it. And the dad's like, I ran away. And that's why, and him crying, like him telling him he's sorry and turning away and crying, like Fujimoto, that emotion, all of that. Oh my God. Oh my God. Gah. I just, like, that emotion's so well done. And the dad saying that he ran away. He's like, he was crying because he was pretending not to see the mom doing that to his son. And he felt so bad for Yuta and knew it wasn't good, but he just couldn't do anything about it. And he's sitting there crying. And he's like, but in the movie, he's like, all that we saw of your mother was how good she was. Your movie just showed the beautiful things. He's like, and Yuta's like, well, when she was in a bad mood, she gave me the silent treatment and never praised me. But I wanted my memories of her to be beautiful. And this line here where the dad says, you have the power to decide for yourself how you remember someone. And that's an incredible thing. I love that line. That's like, cut to the core. Right? Cuts to the core of you. And so he edits back all the footage that he sees of her. And she says that she wants to see the movie. And we see her at the aquarium eating the sundae, which is really cute. In like the resort, on the bus, with the cat. They're like, he says that she rejected him and they never dated, but they do talk about like the kiss scene and stuff, which is funny. And then that last scene where it's just like the bag and like the IV and everything. And she's like, what kind of movie do you want to make? Like I told you from the beginning, a movie that will make them all bawl their eyes out. God, that's so genius. That part I was like, are you freaking kidding me? That's so genius. I had to laugh. I was sobbing and I had to laugh because I'm like, Fujimoto, you did it. You took our heart and you carved it out and you stomped on it and you were like, this is exactly what I was intending from the start. And it's like, oh my God. But I was looking down and I was like, so she died, but we got 50 pages left. I'm like, what are we going to do with 50 pages left? The story's not over, right? And then we see the friend, and the friend points out, didn't Eri wear glasses? And he said, I filmed her without them at her request. And he's like, what about her dental retainer? That came off for shots at her request. So she had a retainer, she had glasses, but we don't get to see that as the audience because that's not the perspective. That's not the way he wanted us to see her. That's not how he wanted to remember her. Which is interesting. So the one girl, she says that you and I were her only friends. Your Eri was a little over-idealized. Like you saw her how you wanted to see her and remember her. And it wasn't true, wasn't accurate, but that's how you wanted to remember her. And I think honestly, like if you've ever lost someone and you have photos of them, the photos of anybody are usually good. Usually you don't want to take a bad photo, right? You usually want to be smiling and looking good in those pictures. And so they're you at your best, right? Unless it's a candid picture and then it's something totally different. But oftentimes the photos we take of people and we remember them by are when they look good. So, oh my God, it's just really, really good. But yeah, and she says, I'll always remember her like that. Thanks. And then it's so creepy. Like the imagery that Fujimoto does is it's creepy because we have the girl and she says, thanks, that's how I'll remember her. And then the panel over is like, it's skewed and shaky and not quite right. and looks kind of scary, honestly, kind of freaky. And then we have the boy, Yuta, and we have the shot of his mom, and then it goes all black. Because again, I'm thinking we have 30 pages left. What are we going to do? We haven't had a resolution yet, because we reached the thing that says the end on page 163, and I'm like, there's still 40 pages left. What are we doing? And he says, that's not really how it worked. And so he says there, he's like, that was my character in the movie, but the real world wasn't the same. And he talks about editing the 2,700 hours of footage with her, and then he got a job. He met a woman he would marry. They had a daughter together. He's like, I kept cutting the movie over and over again. And props to his wife for not thinking that was a little weird that he kept cutting that movie over and over again. But it just felt like it was unfinished, like something was missing from it. And he couldn't put his finger on it. And he's like, I was happy with my family. And if things had gone by and just been normal, I'd have been fine with that. But then it's like Fujimoto is like, do you want to be as sad as possible? Because it shows that he's like, he was driving and then everything turned dark and he was in an accident and he lost his mom. He lost his dad. He lost his dad, his wife, and his daughter. And he was the only one that survived and he couldn't process it. And it felt like the tragedy scene of a movie. And then he's like, I felt the same as I did after my mom died and I was going to commit suicide at high school. He's like, and I've decided to do it again. And he's going to go back to where he met Eri and hang himself. Back in that dilapidated, nasty building. And we see him go back there and it's so gross and creepy. And he goes back into that room and he has the light of his cell phone out. But the thing of it is that the couch is there and there's no one sitting in it. Like, he has the projector. There's nobody sitting in the couch, right? There's no one there. And he has the rope like he's going to hang himself. And that's when he hears the movie and sees her there. So, the question is, did he hang himself? Was this all a dream? Because she wasn't there on the couch when he walked in. So did he hang himself and then saw her? Because when he doesn't stay with her. He leaves the building blows up. So it's like, you don't know. I mean, you could assume he hung himself and that this was all like, this is all hallucination. But then it shows him like dropping the bag and the noose and the phone and everything. And seeing her, and I love the shadows and everything. And he questions it all. So it's like, you don't know. That's the one thing about Fujimoto's writing. You don't know if it's real or not. Just like we just listened to the song. The lines of reality and fantasy are blurred. She's like, you don't know if he really hung himself or if he's seeing her, if she actually was a vampire. Like, it sounds like she is. And God, the whole thing, like, we see more of his face in this at the end than we do the entire story. And she's like, I am really a vampire. And he's like, I filmed your death. And she's like, I died only up here. Because we only have so much space. It's like, as long as my heart's intact, I'll never die. I'll have revived 3 days later and all my memory's gone. But I had a note that's there from herself on how to live. He's like, it sounds like a story out of a movie. She's like, yeah. I had more than just a letter. I had this movie too. And I just love, like, it just goes back to him and he sees, like, just the shots. Like, it's so well done. Like, just the little tiny angles and the tiniest of things. And he's like, will you be able to cope with this? And he's like, everyone you love is going to die, like what he's going through. And she's like, I'll be fine because I have this movie. Because I have something I can remember them by. Every time I see this movie and watch it, no matter how many times I forget, I'll remember you again and again. Isn't that beautiful? Like, no matter what happens, if I've got this, I can't forget you. Oh. My heart. My heart. My heart. It's so freaking good. This was so absolutely wonderful. And he's like, yeah, it is beautiful. Like, just the littlest gestures, the littlest things. And she's like, if you aren't going to sit down, see yourself out. And he's like, fine, I will. Goodbye. And she says, yeah, goodbye. God. And so, and you just wonder, you're like, well, did Was she there to begin with? Did he kill himself? Did he talk himself out of it? You don't know. You don't know for sure. It could be. It's just like the fantasy and everything. And he leaves the building and it all and saying that they never meet again. And then that whole thing about the building and everything blowing up. But he had the bag. Did he have the bag with him? Yeah, he took the bag with the rope back with him. Oh my God. I can't, y'all. I can't. It's just that good. If he just wrote standalone stories like this, oh my God. It's possible. It's the best thing I've read in a long time. It's the most, I mean, I've read there's other manga that I'm reading right now that you followed for like chapters and volumes upon volumes and the stories built up and everything. And those I love just as much as this. But as a standalone thing that's by itself, what the fudge? What the fudge? Fujimoto, what are you doing, sir? It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Get a shot of Goodbye Eri. This was absolutely wonderful, and now I'm really excited. I've read Look Back before, but I'm excited. It's been a year, so I'm excited to go back to it again because it was the first one that he made, like after he got done with Chainsaw Man, I'm pretty sure, and just read through it. But I'm really excited for Chainsaw Man. Let me tell you, if Fujimoto's writing for that series is anything as powerful as this, cheers, sir. Oh, I'm sorry I bawled my eyes out at the beginning of that, but that was visceral, very personal, very real, and yeah. But yeah, a lot of similar themes we'll talk about with Look Back and the theme of death and how people grieve, and because that's the big themes with what I remember from Look Back. Again, I haven't read it in like a year, but what I remember from it is like themes of loss and grief and how we process loss and how we process trauma and how we deal with losing people in our lives and how we remember them and kind of just the way that we celebrate them. This is more like, how do you perceive people and remember them even after they're gone? And the crazy thing is that he has that footage of his mother, but he also has that footage of his dad too. So even though he's lost his dad, he's still got that footage. And we don't know about his wife and his daughter, but it's crazy, right? When I sat down this evening to read this story, I did not think like 2 minutes in I'd be crying. And I did not know I would be sobbing my eyes out by the end of it. So yeah, I had to stop and edit that part out because I know you guys didn't want to see me like sob. I sobbed for a good little while there. But it's out of my system now, so I'm gonna go watch something to make me feel better. So But I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below, what you thought. This was incredible. Such an incredible story, like a masterpiece. It really was. So yeah, I highly recommend Goodbye Eri. Highly recommend Goodbye Eri. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. And the next one we'll look at before Chainsaw Man comes out is going to be Look Back. So we'll round that out before we start with Chainsaw Man this October and get some fun shown in action. So in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more of Tatsuki Fujimoto's one-shot mangas. Bye.